New York will remain a city of immigrants, a city built by immigrants, powered by immigrants, and as of tonight, led by an immigrant. So hear me, President Trump, when I say this. To get to any of us, you will have to get through all.
Zohran Mamdani didn't just enter the political arena today. He crashed into it, armed with policy papers and powered by frustration over presidential absurdity. In the latest chapter of Trump Does What Now, Mamdani's patience has clearly snapped. Fed up with the chaos carnival turning governance into a reality show, he's here to end the spectacle and remind everyone what real, grounded leadership should look like.
Seeing right now what the Trump agenda portends for New Yorkers. This is a man who ran a presidential campaign on the premise of cheaper groceries that is now trying to cut SNAP benefits to make it even harder to afford those same groceries. And we have to protect New Yorkers with the least from the attacks from the man with the most power in this.
Let's be honest. Trump's presidency often feels like a theme park powered by lawsuits, golf carts, and midnight tweets. Every move seems crafted from a Fox News binge and a few too many Diet Cokes. But Zohran Mamdani isn't just watching the spectacle, he's holding up a mirror to it. In that reflection, chaos awkwardly adjusts its tie, smooths its hair, and tries to pass itself off as policy.
If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. And if there is any way to terrify a despot, it is by dismantling the very conditions that allow.
Picture it. President Donald Trump, still claiming victories that don't exist, boasting about records that crumble under scrutiny, and praising an amazing economy while inflation struts through middle America. Across from him stands Zohran Mamdani, calm, composed, and unimpressed, wearing that look that says, "You can't gaslight me. I've already done the math."
Cuomo, who ran an entire primary campaign on the premise that he was best suited to beat Donald Trump. As soon as we defeated him by 13 points, he proceeded almost immediately to get on his hands and knees to beg that same president for his help and the donors of that same president for their help. And now his closing message is to sound even more like the president than anyone else.
Are you saying a vote for Cuomo is like a vote for Trump at this point?
Yes, I am.
It's like watching a chess grandmaster face an opponent wielding a golf club. Mamdani arrives armed with data, logic, and razor-sharp wit. Trump fires back with vibes, ego, and a pile of outdated polls. The contrast practically hums, enough disbelief to power New York's subways, if only political chaos counted as renewable energy.
This is not only how we stop Trump, it's how we stop the next one. So Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
Danny kicks off by dismantling Trump's latest boast that everything's never been better. Cue the collective New York eye roll. Never been better? Tell that to grocery clerks battling rent hikes or teachers holding classrooms together with hope, caffeine, and a half-dead box of dry markers.
See in the language of Donald Trump is a premise as if it is his decision on whether or not to fund a city the very money that this city is owed. And I look forward to utilizing every single tool at my disposal as the next mayor of this city to fight for the people of it. But I will not be intimidated by this president. I will not be intimidated by anyone, because my job here is to serve the people.
And Danny breaks it down with calm precision, like a professor gently noting that the emperor's new clothes are just overpriced PR. He doesn't shout, he points. He points to widening inequality, to policies dressed up as populism, to billion-dollar tax breaks stretching Wall Street's grin while small businesses hold bake sales to survive. Meanwhile, Trump's team is online, tweeting triumphs about record growth, and Mamdani's right there with receipts, translating the fine print everyone else ignored. Then comes the real show, Trump's reaction. His response to criticism always feels like watching someone argue with a mirror, loud, defensive, and convinced the reflection is out to get him. Mamdani, in contrast, stays composed, the embodiment of "I read the report," Did you? It's a clash so lopsided it deserves its own network special. Composure versus Chaos, the remix. Picture: Trump boasting about imaginary victories while Mamdani quietly flips through charts proving the opposite. Each time the president declares success, Mamdani slides over another fact check, calm as ever. The tension between rhetoric and reality hums like two mismatched socks, both insisting they're part of the same polished pair.
Our city have grown far too comfortable taking advantage of their tenants. We will put an end to the culture of corruption that has allowed billionaires like Trump to evade taxation and exploit tax breaks. We will stand alongside unions and expand labor protections because we know, just as Donald Trump does, that when working people have ironclad rights, the bosses who seek to extort them become very small indeed.
Then comes the part that really makes the roast burn. Mamdani doesn't just critique Trump's policies, he dismantles the performance propping them up. He calls out the endless campaign rallies masquerading as governance, the obsession with branding every move as a victory, even when the scoreboard flashes loss after loss. To Mamdani, it's a presidency built for ratings, a reality show with plot twists, but no plot. You can almost hear the laughter of anyone who's ever tried to decode Trump's logic and lived to tell the tale. Every so-called historic achievement is another brick, stacked on contradictions and wishful thinking. Mamdani zeroes in on Trump's favorite illusion, the self-styled champion of the working class who's really the poster child for inherited privilege. It's like watching someone claim they built the house while the construction crew stands outside, still holding the blueprints. With surgical precision, Mamdani peels back the layers of performance and ego. His critique isn't loud or theatrical. It's quiet, deliberate, and devastating. Each point lands with the clarity of truth cutting through spin, reminding everyone that a man shouting, "I understand you," from a private jet probably never will. Mamdani's calm dismantling turns exposure into art, sharp, elegant, and impossible to ignore. Now,
As long as we can remember, the working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands. Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns. These are not hands that have been allowed to hold.
the humor in Mamdani's delivery cuts deep because it's rooted in uncomfortable truth. He isn't mocking for sport. He's exposing absurdity with a steady smile and surgical wit. Each observation lands like a quiet punchline, sharp, factual, and devastating in its restraint. When he mentions the administration's proud America First mantra, he doesn't even need to explain. The irony does it for him. America First in what exactly? Confusion? Debt? Overblown press conferences and photo ops that outshine the policies they're supposed to sell. Then comes foreign policy, or what passes for it. Mamdani describes it like peeking into a room you'd rather not enter. He points out the contradictions, the handshake photo ops dressed up as diplomacy, and the strained smiles from allies now treating the U.S. like that unpredictable friend who shows up late to dinner and still insists on ordering for everyone. Trump's version of leadership, Mamdani quips, feels less like strategy and more like improv theater, except the props come with nuclear codes and global consequences. This isn't governance, Mamdani explains. It's performance art, with a federal budget and an ego for a director. The real goal was never policy coherence, but narrative control. Dominate the headlines, drown out the facts, and label every inconvenient truth as fake until confusion itself becomes a political shield. By the end, Mamdani leaves the audience wondering whether the Trump era was less a presidency and more a masterclass in distraction. Now,
What we have shown in this city is, unlike Donald Trump and the Republican Party, we don't just speak about the affordability crisis. We're actually going to deliver a lower cost of living for New Yorkers. And I'm excited for the Republican Party to use the examples that we will bring in governing this city as an example of what the Democratic Party can do, because what those examples will show is that we can take the most expensive city in the United States.
Still, Mamdani doesn't stop there. He digs into the aftermath, the lingering legacy of division, the erosion of trust, and the normalization of spectacle. It's not just the lies that leave scars, it's the exhaustion. The way people have grown numb to chaos, treating scandals like weather reports. Inevitable, draining, and somehow routine. Mamdani captures it perfectly, naming the quiet burnout of a nation forced to adapt to absurdity as if it were a civic duty. Then comes the economy, Trump's prized talking point, endlessly polished even as the foundation buckles. Mamdani doesn't flinch. He dissects the data with calm precision, like performing an autopsy on a self-congratulatory press release. Job growth slower than advertised. The so-called manufacturing boom, more headline than reality. And that middle-class tax reform? The billionaires are still sending thank you notes. It's like watching someone pour water on marble and insist it's soaking in. The illusion collapses under its own weight. Finally, Mamdani turns to the environment. He can't resist the bitter irony of a president who called himself pro-clean air while dismantling clean air protections. It's that surreal space where policy becomes parody, but the consequences remain painfully real. Forests burn, storms swell, and the script still calls it success. Mamdani delivers it so smoothly you almost miss the sting, until the truth lands, quiet and final. By the end, his critique isn't just sharp, it's weary, a reminder that absurdity, left unchecked, becomes the new normal.
Millions of dollars have been spent to redefine reality and to convince our neighbors that this new age is something that should frighten them. As has so often occurred, the billionaire class has sought to convince those making $30 an hour that their enemies are...
Perhaps the sharpest edge of Mamdani's roast isn't aimed at Trump's record. It's at his craving for validation. The endless rallies, the boasting, the obsession with crowd sizes, polls, and ratings, every metric becomes a mirror reflecting his ego. Mamdani captures it perfectly, a leader chasing applause instead of progress, turning governance into performance while the nation watches, captive in the audience. By now, the contrast between the two feels almost cinematic. Trump thrives on volume, Mamdani on precision. One treats the presidency like primetime entertainment, the other like civic duty. When Mamdani highlights the absurdity of campaign rallies doubling as policy updates, you can almost picture Trump on stage, selling optimism like a late-night infomercial. Everything's perfect, he insists. While invisible fine print flashes below, terms and conditions may apply. And somewhere amid the spectacle, Mamdani pauses. The silence does what shouting never could. It draws every eye to the truth. No theatrics, no bluster, just facts stacking neatly into a monument of contradiction. Each point lands heavier than the last until the illusion wobbles, teetering like Trump Tower 2, the sequel to Power, a glittering facade built entirely on spin and applause.
This is a president who ran on cheaper groceries, who's now spending $300 million to remodel a White House ballroom, the same amount of money that could give SNAP benefits to 100,000 New Yorkers. So the contrast is one that would be too great for them to bear. And that's what we have the opportunity to show, is that we don't just diagnose the affordability crisis in the lives of working class New Yorkers, we also...
The roast keeps rolling as Mamdani tackles Trump's latest boast, that he's the most transparent president ever. At that claim, Mamdani raises an eyebrow so metaphorical it practically jumps off the screen. Transparency? Sure. If by transparent you mean watching someone shove documents behind a curtain labeled executive privilege. Any audience would be howling by now, but Mamdani doesn't stop at the surface. He dismantles the scaffolding beneath the words, the obsession with control, the fixation on optics, the relentless rewriting of history to cast himself as a flawless leader under siege. He even takes on Trump's recent attempt to redefine patriotism, where loyalty to the country magically becomes loyalty to him personally. Mamdani frames it perfectly. Leadership exists to serve the people, not the persona. By the end, Mamdani isn't angry. He's quietly amused. The kind of amusement born from watching a show run far too long, with the main act oblivious to its own finale. He leaves the audience with a single sharp image, a president endlessly chasing applause while history marches forward without him. And that ultimately is the punchline. While Trump stages rallies, posts bombastic statements, and declares victories that defy basic arithmetic, Mamdani and voices like his calmly pull back the curtain, revealing the machinery behind the myth. In this performance of accountability, truth does all the heavy lifting, and the absurdity, loud, brazen, and unearned, carries itself, unmasking the spectacle for exactly what it is.
Look, almost every morning Donald Trump wakes up and makes threats to cities across this country. And they are threats that use the language of safety, and yet we know they have nothing to do with that, because if they did, then it would mean deploying the National Guard to the 8 out of 10 states with the highest crime rates, but they're all run by Republicans, so that would never even be considered. In fact, it's about intimidation. It's about trying to create a sense of fear. And I agree with the police commissioner, Jessica Tisch, here in New York City, that we do not need the National Guard. We have the NYPD to create that public.
It's the slow, deliberate unraveling of an illusion, a process both hilarious and sobering. Every statistic Mamdani drops reminds the audience that reality persists, even in an era built on spectacle and hyperbole. Each observation cuts through the fog of spin with a precision that only truth can provide. By the time Mamdani concludes, there's no need for shouting, dramatic exits, or television-ready finales. No dimmed lights, no confetti, no manufactured fanfare. Instead, there's a quiet, razor-sharp conclusion that lands harder than any staged spectacle ever could. It's the kind of ending where silence speaks louder than applause. Somewhere on stage, Trump may still be declaring victories and rewriting the scoreboard in real time, but the illusion has lost its grip. The audience has seen behind the curtain. The so-called magic trick now appears as a clumsy rehearsal. Mamdani doesn't gloat. He doesn't need to. His calm, deliberate precision does what shouting never could. It dismantles the myth from the inside. Every fact he presents lingers in the air, undeniable and impossible to argue with. What remains after the performance is the simplest, hardest-hitting truth. Clear, unavoidable, and uncompromising. Trump's bluster diminishes against Mamdani's stillness, like a firework fizzling after too much noise. When the slogans fade, the tweets stop echoing, and the spectacle finally quiets, all that remains is the hollow echo of performance masquerading as power. Mamdani, with unshakable composure and methodical clarity, delivers the ultimate review, not in shouts or theatrics, but in truth. And that truth, laid bare and unwavering, is more brutal than any roast could ever be.